How can you generate language patterns indefinitely no matter how much your clients resist or are afraid to change? Once you master this system, you can easily improvise up to 1000 language patterns on any particular topic or any particular problem because your brain will not run out of ideas anymore. Back in the beginning in my practice, I used to let people speak for hours and never ever challenging them on anything they were saying. Even if I was noticing some huge limiting beliefs, I was kind of too afraid to tell them clearly, can we talk about this? And I would never interrupt them, and then they would go on for hours and hours and nothing would ever change. The reason I was not challenging them enough in the beginning was because I had in my head stuck just one language pattern or just one technique. Hypnotic one, NLP, something about anchoring, whatever. I just had one thing stuck in my head and I was focusing only on that, trying to fit that in the conversation or fit that in the session at some point. But I was so stuck in my head overthinking I should say this one phrase or this one command or this one metaphorical question from Erickson, whatever, that I was dismissing most of what the client was talking about. And I will tell you, there is a big issue with that strategy if you are this type of person yourself too, of just trying to obsess on one thing that is supposed to make the client change and it might not even work. It is that if you only focus on one arrow in your toolbox, one tool in your toolbox, then if that thing doesn't work, you are basically, you no longer have anything to try. On the opposite, today I can speak hypnotically for hours and hours while never running out of things to say, and it all started with a specific exercise I threw myself into. I wanted to see how I could keep my mouth running no matter how stressful the situation was, and to make sure I was always able to improvise with fluidity on any particular topic without being too afraid of the reaction or without being too afraid of what if what I say triggers some hot buttons or what if what I say doesn't provide any result. The big thing, which is kind of letting go, is to on purpose let go and don't care at all that your next line, the next thing you say, the next language pattern you use, that the next thing should be the right one, should be the one that will make them change, that will make them have an epiphany inside their head, that will make them have some breakthrough about their life. If you just don't care about will my next line, will my next phrase work or not, if you don't care about this and you just see it as a game. Because on the opposite, I'm seeing so many people having this problem of seeing language patterns or hypnotic change work as a hit or miss game. They think it is either they say this and the client will change, or it is done, it is over. It is not like this. It's just like a circular loop. You just run over a loop endlessly, like an infinite game where you throw many more patterns, many more reframes, things you call into another name, metaphorical statements about what if your situation was actually like this. As long as you keep your mouth running, at some point one of the things you say will hit their unconscious mind. But if you just stop after the main thing you thought would make them change, would make them reflect on themselves, because one day you heard a metaphor or a story and that story had a big impact on yourself, and now you believe that anyone else listening to this will have the same level of impact, doesn't work like this. Not everyone is you, not everyone works like you, and you may need to adapt your language to any other person who may come from a different belief system and map of the world than you. The way I automated so many language patterns was by first deconstructing into smaller chunks. So whenever I would hear Milton Erickson or Richard Bandler or Tony Robbins or any person using some phrase that would make a big impact on the client they were interacting with, or even just sometimes politicians, sometimes actors in some movies, whenever I was hearing a phrase that I thought was really interesting, I would write it down or just remember it and notice what is that phrase made of. If we could deconstruct into where is the embedded command, where is the activation verb, where is the presupposition about the time frame, is it an intention that they come from, do they mention their intention in that statement, do they point to a consequence? just deconstructing each step of the phrase one by one and noticing it's always kind of the same structure that keeps coming back when really influential people get to convince others around them. That was the first main point, and the second one was to stop focusing on what to say next, or how should I say this, or if I want to make them understand this thing, this belief change, how could I say this? Your head does not exist anymore. It is about what do they complain about next. When I noticed I could focus much more on what they complain about or what they are scared of, it was feeding my intuition for what to say next. Instead of staying stuck in my own head about, oh, I have read about those sleight of mouth patterns, now I have to see how to say this. If you're just stuck in your own head, you're disconnecting from the present, from the moment, and from them, and from their unconscious mind. So first of all, their unconscious mind doesn't feel respected anymore, or at least not as much as when you give them your full attention, and when you stop watching any other window, and you give me your full attention right now by stop scrolling on anything else as I'm speaking. For example, with a client, it is the same thing. When you just give them your full attention and you immediately intensely focus on the main problem they complain about or that you sense some negative emotional wound about, and you base your next phrase on this, then the session will go well anyway. Even if you're not the cleverest hypnotist, even if you're not the most advanced NLP master, the session will go well anyway because you take the time to listen to their concern and address it. That is the basis of the method I have developed and share with you down below called the Unlimited Language Patterns System, where basically I give you a simplified structure in 3 steps. Like there is 3 chunks of information, one for the beginning of the phrase, whatever is it that you say, one chunk for the middle of the phrase, how do you transition, and one chunk for the end of the phrase, how do you lead their mind somewhere else. And the point is not to figure out the main secret hypnotic line that will make anyone change, because you will basically never find that. It is about how can you automate this process, this loop of those 3 steps, how can you automate that in your head so that anything you say sounds hypnotic. It does not matter anymore you talk about animals, about ecology, about people from any political field, about a cigarette problem, about a weight loss problem. Anything you say will make a big impact in their head, or will start to move things around and maybe making their beliefs or their assumptions move sideways or turn their whole psychology upside down, because the structure of your language has been transformed, has been shaped to sound and to trigger their unconscious resources more easily than when you just present fact and information like most people do, even in some coaching programs. That method comes with detailed examples of how could you use it on certain specific problems that you may or you will definitely encounter in therapy sessions if you are a professional, and see how can you apply it to this kind of objection, to this kind of problem, so that you have examples and then you have a methodology for how to develop your skills yourself. Because in the end, you may know that, but some people are new here and are not really aware of that. Just listening to all of these passively will not do much. What will make a big impact is that you develop your skills by practicing out loud, or by writing down, or maybe rehearsing in your head, whatever you do with whichever method you prefer, but that there is one canal through which you practice your skills. And I will give you the exact recipe that I use myself to practice my skills up to the point where I can indeed improvise language patterns fluently with a fluidity, no matter what the topic of conversation is about. You can find all of this down below on the first link, and I wish you good luck and see you soon in the next video.